So that's the warning I'm going to give you. Obviously, if a child's, I understand that's not some people's thing. I get that. So I understand if it's not, so I'll see you on the next one. But if you are staying, I am going to start now. Okay. So the devastating Scotty McMillan story. All right. Oh, it really is as well. Oh God. Right. Okay. So Scott Jacob McMillan was born on the 26th of January 2011 in Pennsylvania. Okay, his mum Gillian Tate, dad Lauren McMillan. I was very confused when I first heard it because Lauren, you would normally that I just always thought that was a female name. I know you can have different names, but just don't be confused. Lauren is the dad, okay, but it's spelled Loren. So, just saying. They'd been together for about 4 years when she got pregnant with little Scotty. Sorry, let's pull it back. They'd been together for 4 years when she got pregnant with Scott, who they called Scotty, all right? They also had a little boy at that point who was 4, funny enough, so they must have caught straight away. Now, the older brother, I do know his name, as I do sometimes in these stories, but just for his privacy and everything else, I'm not going to say his name. I'm just going to refer to him as R, okay? Now, Scott, obviously nicknamed Scotty, cute little boy, adorable little red-headed little fella. It was said he was very happy, loved his big brother, loved his big brother. I really looked up to him, and I was very sweet with him. They were very close. Gillian called him her little man. He loved singing. It was said he loved being tickled. He was just seemed like a real cute little lad. He did. I've seen pictures of him, and he's adorable. He really is. But by the time Scotty was actually born, Lauren and Gillian, they weren't really getting along together at this point. They'd been having their little squabbles and stuff. So when Scotty was born, Lauren actually didn't, from what I've heard, go and collect her from the hospital with him. And Gillian actually ended up going back to her sister's home, which would be Scotty's aunt, and staying there with his older brother R and his mum. It doesn't say for how long, but Lauren and Gillian do get back together. I presume they were just trying to work it out. But during this time, Gillian had started going out herself. Even though she was going out, and there's Facebook posts of her out living it up and everything else. Everyone says she was still a very good mum to the boys. She'd got a job at Walmart. She was trying to do her best for the boys. That's what was said. Okay. Now in March 2012, there is a post of Lauren and Gillian going out raving together. She did like a rave scene. Like I say, they were trying for the boys. That's all I know. But at the end of 2013, they do officially break up. Okay. At this point, Scotty's nearly 3. Well, he's nearly 3. And ours nearly. I've got it worked out. This is about 7. Now Lauren, their dad, he moves to Kansas when him and Gillian break up. So you're going to notice I don't really mention much more about him. Okay, I'm just going to say that. So Lauren nor his family got to see the boys much. Now, I don't know if that was choice on Lauren's part. I don't know. It doesn't say was she keeping him away from the boys, but he actually left and went to Kansas. So, you know, I don't want to judge too much on that. I'm not going to judge too much on that. But Lauren's, I think it's Scotty's aunt, so it'd be Lauren's sister. So so they moved in with Gillian's sister at first, and this is Lauren's sister I'm talking about. So Scotty's paternal aunt in this respect, and she would follow, you know, the boys on social media basically through the pictures that Gillian would put up, and it looked like, for all intents and purposes, that she was doting on the boys. She was doing her best for them, you know, and that's how it looked anyway. Like I said, she'd got herself a job at Walmart. She was trying, but some of her Facebook posts, apparently she had a few Facebook accounts. Now, some of the posts she would put up, it would hint that she was struggling financially. You know, it would give that hint away. And then it was spotted that she even put up a post putting out for a sugar daddy. And in this post, it said that she's put up, it mentions her boys by name while she's looking for this sugar daddy. So, oh my God. Oh, okay. All right. So, anyway, she doesn't meet her sugar daddy. Let's just say that. She doesn't meet this sugar daddy she was intending to. No. Gillian meets a man. Oh, God. A man by the name of Gary Lee Fellenbaum III. Okay. Sounds very distinguished, doesn't it? But it's not. It's not at all. And they meet at work. Now, the thing with Gary's actually married, okay? And he's got an 11-month-old little girl. He lives with said wife and little girl. Now, it said that they'd been having problems and they were in the midst of a divorce, but they were still living together in this, I know I use the term a lot, but a hole. It was a hole. It was a trailer, which, you know, I know trailers in America have got sort of a stigma attached to them, but if you live here, you know, if you go on holidays in caravans, like you can get some beautiful mobile homes. They're amazing. But this wasn't that. It wasn't that. It was, yes, it was a hole. I'm just going to say. It was a hole. So, anyway. So, even though Gary and his wife, Amber, and their little girl living in this trailer, after a couple of days of seeing Gillian, a couple of days of their new relationship, he brings Gillian and Scotty and little R he invites them to live with him and his wife and their child. So they're all living together as a big happy family, apparently. Okay. So, Gary, I'll put down here, and I know it sounds terrible, but I'll put down, I don't know whether to say, but I'll put down fat bloke, bad temper. That's what I've actually put. It's not exactly the greatest thing to say, but when I tell you about what this man does, then you're going to understand why I am so dismissive in my description of him. Because he's just vile. He's a vile human being. Okay? So, this is October in 2014, this is. Now, bearing in mind it was only the end of 2013 when Gillian and Lauren broke up, okay? So she hasn't been single for long. What's that, about 9 months? 10 months maybe? Okay? So now in the house, in the trailer, we have Amber with her husband, Gary, and their baby, right? Then we've got Gary's new girlfriend, which is Gillian, and her 2 boys, which is R, who's about 7, maybe 8, and little Scotty, okay, who at this point had turned 3, okay? All right. R himself was in kindergarten. He was actually going to kindergarten around this time. But when Gillian moved, when she moved into the hole of holes with her boys, she didn't update the school. She didn't let them know that she was moving, okay? That becomes a real problem in a bit, and I'll tell you about it. But she doesn't update her address with the school, okay? So very, very, very soon, I'm going to say this all happens very quick, okay? So what I'm about to tell you, it's not spread over a vast amount of time. This all happens very, very quickly, okay? So like I say, very, very soon after them moving in, Gary begins disciplining R and Scotty. He takes it upon himself to discipline Gillian's boys. Okay? He doesn't know these kids. It's within days that it happens. And it begins with open-handed slaps. That's how it begins. So we don't even start off with a telling off, put in a naughty corner. No. We're going to fast forward straight to slapping these little boys. Okay? So that's how it starts. Now, Gillian at this point, it said that she herself is also being hit by Gary. And that he'd only let her sleep sporadically, like he'd let her eat, sleep an hour here and there, so she was sleep deprived. That excuse you're going to understand in a second. Now, a friend of Gillian's who'd been out with her when she was, going out partying not long after Scotty was born, if you remember, she bumped into Gillian, this friend did, and she said she looked rough. She said she looked so rough. She'd never seen her looking that bad at this time that she'd seen her. And like I say, this is within a week or so of them moving in together. So it all happened very quickly, okay? So we get to mid-October 2014. They've been living with Gary for 2 weeks. 2 weeks. And let's remember, little Scotty's 3.5 years old. He's still a baby. He's still a baby, okay? Now, around this time, R gets removed from the school. Do you remember I said he'd been going to kindergarten? As far as I can gather, I know in America they start school earlier than us. They have a 3-month summer, but I think they go back in sort of August, don't they? Beginning of August, if I'm right, around that point. So he'd not long been in kindergarten and he gets pulled out. She takes him out, okay? So around this time now, the boys are getting locked in a room for hours at a time. Just locked and left in a room with no stimulation, no toys, no nothing. And they weren't allowed to come out, even to use the toilet. So when they'd have an accident, they know that they're going to get in trouble. So they started hiding, going to where they were having to go to the toilet, because they knew it would result in them getting a slap off this man. They don't know. So, they would have to hide that. So this was sort of their life now. Little R wasn't even getting the break of going to school. So now, no longer just content with open-handed slapping these children who aren't his, who he doesn't really know. Not, not that I'm saying that's okay, I'm just saying. Gary escalated to punching them. He just did quite quickly. He begins punching them, and then he starts using objects to beat these little boys, okay? One being a wooden spoon, like a big wooden spoon. Another one was a green frying pan. A frying pan to beat a 3-year-old. How does that compute? Who does that? Wait, I know what I'll do. I know what'll stop that. I mean, okay, now bless him, being obviously older than little Scotty, he sussed quite quickly that if he didn't cry and he didn't scream, that Gary would get bored and he'd stop hitting him. So he sussed that quite quickly. So when he'd be getting into trouble and be getting hit, he'd try and keep as quiet as possible. And it was like that, Gary wouldn't be getting pleasure from that, you see. So he would move on to Scotty quite quickly, and it progressed then to Scotty getting the main just wrath of his from then on. Now it then escalated to both boys being hung by their feet, okay, while they could be beaten. Hung up these little boys so he could beat them more easily. And you might be like, right, okay, well, that's Gary. We can suss that Gary's an animal. So where's Gillian in this, mum? Where's Amber? All right, she's not their mum, but she's got a child. Surely there's got to be some maternal instinct coming out when she's seen this happening to these boys. It's a very small trailer. Everyone knows what's going on. Nothing's been hidden here. Now, Amber would witness this going on, but she just didn't do anything. It was said that she was just happy that it wasn't her daughter that was getting it. So I don't know what that means. Does that mean that he was putting his hands on his 11-month-old daughter before these boys moved in? I don't know what that means. But she was just happy to stand back and be like, well, thank God it's not me. And you might be like, right, okay, well, where's his mum? Where's their mum? No, mum. There's the fingers. Mum. She wasn't just watching this like Amber, who's the dregs of the earth as it is. Oh, no, she wasn't just watching it. She was joining in. She was involved in these beatings. Not just involved in these beatings. They would laugh. They would find it funny that these two little boys were being hung up and beaten. They would laugh. She would laugh at her little boys being tortured by this absolute beast of a man. Please go and have a look at him. Look at the size of him. He's a big, big man, and we're talking about two little boys. One of them is a toddler. Okay. Now, our school had grown concerned He hadn't been coming in. They were concerned, so they started going through their protocol of making phone calls and sending letters out, like, where is he? Was he not in? Which I think is, it's unusual. We have a lot of these cases where the school, they it's quite half-hearted. Well, it seems with this case, they really were on the ball and they were trying to find out what was going on, right to the point where they went to their house. But it was their old house because Gillian, if you remember, hadn't told them where they'd moved to. So when they got to the old address and knocked on, of course, no one's answering. So they leave like a letter attached to the door. But no one was ever going to see it because no one lived there. She'd gone. So we get to November the 2nd, 2014. Now, let's remember, they only moved in, okay? They only moved in a month ago. That's when they moved in, okay? They've been living there probably by this point, 4 weeks? That's it, all right? Now, like I say, this is November the 2nd, 2014, I think I said. And the violence by this point had escalated beyond imagination. It had just got so out of hand. It really had. Gary had made himself, it's called a cat of nine tails, and it's a whip. And I've seen it, and it's cords, like probably about 3 or 4 cords of sort of rope, okay, tied at the top, tied at the one end, okay, and then at the other ends, there's look, the cords were sort of, there was like metal on the end, and where he could whip the boys. There was also a curtain rod. There was also a metal aluminium bar. And what he'd do, if you remember, I says there was duct tape around the cords as well with his whip. He'd wrap duct tape around the top of the curtain rod and around the top of the metal bar so he wouldn't hurt his own hands. Okay. When he was beating these children with a metal bar and a curtain rod. I've seen them. They're actually half bent where he must have been hitting them. Okay. So, but most of the torture, it was aimed at little Scotty. It was. He would even make our joining sometimes. I mean, how awful for that little boy. How awful. He loved his little brother, and he was being made to hit him. Oh. Okay, so we get to know, so this was just a really, really, really bad day for little Scotty. Like I say, he'd been beaten with the whip. It was torture for him. So on November the 3rd, 2014, okay, Scotty at this point was in so much pain. Gillian had made him some toast, cinnamon toast apparently, and he couldn't eat it. He couldn't swallow it. He physically couldn't eat it. I imagine he was hungry, but he couldn't eat it. Now Gary took this as extreme disrespect. Extreme disrespect. How dare he not eat this toast that his mum has made him? How dare he? So Gillian and Gary, Mum, and Gary decide to start trying to shove the toast down his throat. Okay? But little Scotty, he couldn't swallow it, so he was spitting it out. And as he's spitting it out, they're trying to shove it back down his throat. Ugh. And then Gary begins punching Scotty in the stomach and in the face. And then they drag him into the bedroom to continue the assault. No, punching him in his face and his stomach. Not enough. Not enough for a 3-year-old. No, we have to continue this. We have to. And then while they're in the bedroom, Gary, he picks Scotty up by his shirt and he slams him so hard into the bedroom wall, it leaves a dent. And when I tell you that the pictures of these dents are online, you can see them. You can see the bedroom that the boys were kept in. And you can see there's not just one dent there, there's actually 3. And it was said that was from, one of them was from ours head hitting the wall. But the other 2 were from Scotty's head hitting the wall. And these aren't like just little bit, these are full blown dents with cracked plaster from a baby's head. Oh God. Scotty falls unconscious. Okay. So what they do, what they always do, they put him in a shower. Let's wake him up. Let's go. And they do try to wake him up, and he does come round. So what they do, they're like, oh, but leave him alone then. And they leave him in his room till the next morning. Okay. So now we've got to November the 4th, 2014. Okay. So this beating and torture has now been going, this is going into its 3rd day now. Okay. And his little face is bruised and swollen and red. And again, they want him to sit down and eat breakfast. And again, he can't. He can't swallow it. He can't. Okay. So Gary, again, oh God, ultimate disrespect. He's doing it again. He's just not eating his breakfast. So he punches him so hard in the face that he knocks him off his little chair. Okay. So not being content with that, not thinking, you know, I better stop maybe. No, he picks Scotty up, shoves him back into the chair. He then gets duct tape, ties his little legs together, ties his arms to the arms of the chair so he can then just wail on him. He just begins raining down these punches to his head and to his belly. And little Scott, he can't even try and protect himself. He can't try to defend himself. He can't do anything. And this grown man, this man's over 200 pounds. I've said it probably 3 times in this. He's a big man, and full force punches he's giving this baby in his face and his stomach, until Scotty begins to vomit. Okay? And then he falls unconscious. So you might be like, right, okay, where's the women in the house? Where are they? Where are the women in the house? Well, Amber, she's there. She's seen it. She's witnessed it. Again. Chose not to do it. Nothing to do with me. Not my kids. I'm going to go back and watch my child. This is nothing to do with me. And then you've got their mum so-called mom, well, she's obviously there, witnessed the whole thing as well, but all she decides to get involved with is then bringing Scotty in with Gary again into the shower to wake him up, okay? But it doesn't work this time. So then they think, we'll give him an ice bath. Ice bath, you know. No, that doesn't work either. So they're like, oh, right, okay, well, let's just dry him, get him dressed. They bring him into that so-called bedroom and lie him on the deflated air mattress that the boys have got as a bed, okay? And they leave him there. And they said they were leaving him there to sleep it off. Sleep off the absolute beating and torture he's just got from this absolute monster of a man. He's going to sleep it off, apparently. Okay? There was blood pouring from his mouth, from his nose, from his ears. He was dying. That's what he was. He wasn't sleeping. He was dying. Now, R was also made to go in that room and stay in there with his little dying brother. Do you want to know what they were doing? Oh, well, Gary and Gillian decided, I'm going to go out, let's go out for a bit. And they go out and they do a bit of shopping. They go and look at a few cars at a car lot. They go and pick up a pizza. They come back. They have a little bit of intimate time while her son's dying in the other room. And then they have a little nap. They have a little sleep. So we get to 7 p.m, still on the 4th of November. Gillian, awakening from her nap, look, the princess that she is, goes in to check on Scotty, all right? And now she sees he's no longer breathing. He's no longer breathing. So then she starts screaming. Apparently then she screams and screams for someone to call 911. And Amber comes flowing in like, Captain, I'm going to save everyone, and phones 911. But why couldn't you have done that 12 hours earlier? Why couldn't you have done that morning? But no, you're going to choose to do it now. Brilliant. So the paramedics come, but it was too late. It was too late. Scotty, at 3 years old, had died at 7:45 p.m. on the 4th of November, 2014. The paramedics could see he was covered in cuts, he was covered in bruises, he had puncture wounds. This little boy was black and blue. It was just, oh, the nurses cried when they saw him. The nurses have said they will never, ever forget seeing that little boy. And they admitted they see a lot of sights that come in to the hospital. And they said they will never forget seeing this little boy be brought in. Now, R himself was also seriously injured. His older brother, he was seriously injured himself. So he was brought into hospital for care. And him and Amber and Gary's little girl, who was completely uninjured, she was actually okay, the 11-month-old little girl. They were both removed from their care. Of course they would be. Now, when the autopsy was done on little Scotty, the cause of death was said to be multiple blunt force trauma. So obviously multiple parts of his body. and it was, the manner of death was classed as a homicide. Of course it would be. Little Scotty was buried on November the 12th, 2014. He was buried holding his little Thomas the Tank Engine train. It was said he loved Thomas the Tank Engine. And his little coffin on the front had a little Thomas the Tank Engine picture painted on it. Oh, God. Oh, the community themselves were horrified. Absolutely horrified. The school, when they found out, remember I said the school, they tried to find the family, find out what was going on with R himself, and they were devastated. There was a candlelight vigil held. There was donations sent in from around the world. There was donations sent in for this little family, and mainly for little R, to try and help with his sort of helping him move on. I don't even know. That's obviously not the right word. Helping him with his recovery, should I say. Now, when the police had gone round to the house, they had everything they needed. They found the whips with the duct tape. They found the holes in the wall. Like I say, the pictures are really upsetting when you know what them holes are. They're very upsetting. So, like I say, they are online, but absolutely heartbreaking to see. And one thing that was noticed in the trailer, there was only one photo of that little boy. Just one. Ugh. Now, all three of these cretins admitted their part at first. Now, Amber, she was like, I feel really bad. I feel really bad. I should have done something. I shouldn't have let it go that far. I should have done something. I did see him hitting him with the green frying pan, but you know, I didn't know what to do. I was a bit scared. So, you know, I did nothing. That's Amber. Now, Gillian, she admits using the frying pan. You know, Mum? Admits using the frying pan. She admits using the whip. She even admits using the wooden spoon on the boys. But she goes, I didn't punch them. That wasn't me. I didn't punch them though. I just used I used the things that were around the house, you know. So really, it was all Gary. And Gary, basically, he does admit to what he's been doing and what he'd done. But he says, you know, this wouldn't have happened if he'd have just eaten his breakfast. I can't even tell you what I've written down. Next to that note. Oh, God. You know, Gillian admits the reason we know that her and Gary would laugh at the boys being hung up, upside down and beaten is the reason we know that she was laughing and they were laughing is because she told the police. She told them that they would laugh and find it funny. What is... Some people, I don't get it. I don't get it. Okay. So on November the 6th, 2014, now Gary and Gillian, they're charged with 16 counts, okay, including first-degree murder, third-degree murder, aggravated assault and homicide, okay. November the 7th, 2014, so the next day, Amber, she's charged with 4 counts of child abuse. So they're all charged and all held. None of them get bail. They're all kept in, okay. So at the beginning of the trial, Thomas Hogan, the district attorney, he begins the trial with saying, let me tell you an American horror story. And he goes in just to lay out you know, to everyone and to the judge, look, these kids were tortured. These were actually tortured. These children, they weren't just beaten. This was horrific. Okay, this was an actual horror story that this little boy had to live through. He was punched. He was beaten. He was whipped. He was whipped with metal. He was whipped with cord. He was whipped with a curtain rod. His head was slammed into a wall. He was tied up. It hung from his by his feet, you know. And this is why, because of the aggravating aspects of it, he wanted to go for the death penalty, based on the two reasons: the torture and obviously how young Scotty was. He wanted to go for the death penalty. Okay. Now, when it comes to sentencing, so you might be like, what's going on? Where's the trial? Well, all cowards, all of them, okay? But we can also think it's a good thing, because obviously little R would have been, whether he'd have had to have been a witness at the trial or he'd have been able to do a video link, I don't know, but he was saved having to go through that, because firstly, Amber, in April of 2017, she pled guilty, all right? And she said she would testify against Gillian and Gary, okay? And so she was sentenced to 6.5 to 16 years, okay? Now, also a bit later on in April of 2017, Gillian, she pleads guilty. And she says, I'll testify against Gary. They're all just covering their asses, aren't they? That's all they're doing. She's given 42 to 90 years. Okay. The judge even says he was going outside of the perimeters of what the sentences should have been, because of just how bad this was. Okay. Now Gary, he tried everything to put his trial off. He said he wasn't mentally competent. He tried that. He tried to say he was coerced into his confession. He then tried to say it was actually Gillian and Amber and he hadn't really done the damage. He tried everything, but he could not put off this trial. He tried left, right and centre. And just before he was due to go to trial, and don't forget, they were going for the death penalty on this guy, he then goes, all right, okay, you got me. And he pleads guilty. Oh, God. Okay, so he pleads guilty and he's given life without parole plus 10 to 20 years for the abuse of R. Okay, so even after life, and at the end of his life, he's still got to do another 10 to 20 years at the end of his life. But that's what he was sentenced to. Okay, now little R had written a letter to his mum, Gillian, okay, just basically outlining it that you are the worst mother and you are now having your time out, which, you know, oh, just such a shame. Now, Amber since has been released. She's out on parole. Apparently, she's found God and she's trying to make herself a better person and living with family. So, that's Amber, all right? Now, little R had also written a letter to his brother Scotty, okay? And just basically in this letter, he said that there was good news and bad news for Scotty. He's basically saying the good news is Gary's in jail, but the bad news that you're in heaven and you're not with me. Oh, God. Oh. Now, the uncle who'd since adopted her, I think I mentioned that earlier, did I? but anyway, it was ours uncle that went on to adopt him. Actually has said that he doesn't know which child out of Scotty and R was more unfortunate. And when I first heard that, I was like, what do you mean? And it's what R's got to live with. He's got to live with not only the abuse and torture he went through, but the fact that he was made to stay in that room while his little brother was dying beside him. How do you get over that? And he would have been, what, 7, 8 at the time. Oh, it's just awful. Like I say, our school was completely devastated, but when the checks were done at the end, as they always do, it was said that they did follow protocol and they had done everything within their power to do at that time. The paternal family is obviously devastated. I did say at the beginning, I don't know much more about Lauren, Scotty's dad. I don't want to say too much about him because I don't know. But it does say the paternal family is devastated. Now, I had said that there was donations being sent in from around the world and they were put into a trust for R. Okay? Now, R needs a lot of help. Okay? He's now going into his teenage years. He going through his teenage years, should I say. He needed a lot of help through that time, through therapy. His aunt and uncle who've adopted him wanted to get him, it was said like, they wanted to get him drum lessons and they wanted to get him karate lessons and just things to help boost his confidence and just to, but those things, they cost money. Now, these donations were being held in a trust for R, and the lawyer who was the executor of this trust basically said that that money should be held for him to go to college. And the family basically came along and says, look, that's all well and good, but he needs help now. Don't forget, he was only 7, 8 at the time. He needs help now. He needs help in getting himself together and putting himself back together and them helping him do that. And apparently the stuff they wanted to do for him, and it was for him to go to a camp as well for a couple of weeks in the summer. It came to $9,500 anyway. He said no. This lawyer wouldn't give them the money. And I don't know how I feel about that. I really don't. You know, I'm sure they would have provided receipts and everything else to show this is what we've spent his money on. But somehow he had the power to say no. Now, it's said that in that fund, in that trust fund, would be $62,000. So $9,000 out of it, he'd have still had more than enough to go to college. I just don't get that part. I don't get that at all. So I'm presuming that will be an ongoing battle within the family. You know, I mean, we're 10 years later, he'd be coming up to 18. So, I mean, is a trust for when he's 18. I mean, college is when they finish high school at 18, don't they? And then they go 19, 20, 21, 22 is college, isn't it? So, you know, I'm going to keep a look at it and see what I can see if ever it's reported on of, does he get his college fund, you know, from the people who donated it for him, who's Scotty's and his story just touched them so much that they donated their money to this little boy. And I don't know how they'd feel to know that all these years later he still hasn't got it. But I'll keep an eye on that. But oh, it's just awful. And that was the devastating Scotty McMillan story. Oh, God. Just awful, wasn't it? Just an awful, awful story. Oh, just some people just never, ever, ever should have children. Ever. But thank you so much for joining me. I really do appreciate it. If you'd like to comment and subscribe, I'd really appreciate that. If you want to join my Patreon, it's patreon.com/JessRose5472. I'm here every Tuesday and Thursday if you'd like to join us at 8 o'clock. A great bunch in the live if you want to come and join us. But yeah, I'm going to have a little chat with them now, and I'm going to be back on Thursday at 8 o'clock. So yeah, come and join us. I'd really appreciate it. So hi, how